It's really easy now that I have the pencil line. You just mark it, make it line up with the arrow.
I know, you're going very fast.
I know, it's quite easy.
As long as the bobbin doesn't.
I know, you go very slow and very steady. You don't try anything too crazy. This machine is just like a senior citizen. It needs stability, same routine every day.
It's only born in the 80s.
Nothing too fast.
That cost how much?
Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey.
And my name is Becky.
And we are the Sorry Girls.
Welcome back to another episode of That Cost How Much?
This is the series where we recreate expensive things that we see online in store and we make them a lot more affordable.
Yeah, things that make us ask, that cost how much?
Exactly. And this edition is going to be FALL-IDAY edition. We're calling that because it's mostly fall-y kind of vibe items, but also like one kind of Christmassy item. And you know what we just realized like literally 5 minutes ago?
Fun fact.
Fun fact is that Christmas is like 4 days after fall ends. Like it's barely even into winter. So that's like almost a true fall-a-day, you know?
It really is a fall day. Okay, so we went out and looked at a bunch of different items that we thought we could recreate for much less. And I guess we'll just jump into the first one.
We're gonna jump into it. I'll jump into it. We're gonna fall into it. Thanks, Daniela.
Better.
Daniela's like,
joke, say it.
Joke. Oh, but subscribe before you before we fall into this video. I almost said jump, but we're not jumping today. We're falling. Okay. All right. So first up, I'm going to tackle these wooden beads that can be found at Pottery Barn for $99, which is very expensive. Maybe it's the mango wood that makes them expensive. But while this bead garland is very cute, I think it's good for like Christmas decor, or you can just kind of like have it around like in a bowl or like hanging on a wall, kind of beside a door, a vibe like that, or the mantle for Christmas. There's so many different uses. They're cute, but I don't think they're $99 cute. I'm gonna tackle this, and I feel like a little embarrassed for even being like, this is a DIY because it's so easy, but whatever. I'm telling you about this project. It's cool, it's exciting, we're gonna do it together. So these are some wooden balls, beads, probably not balls, balls that were made into beads. They're from Amazon and they cost $15.30. Oop! And I got 100 of them, and I know on the Pottery Barn string there's 85, so I can potentially make an even longer one. And then I picked up some twine from the dollar store. So we're gonna start stringing some beads on this thing and make ourselves a bead garland. And because my bead here is about 1 inch, that means that I'm going to do 100 beads that are inch long. That makes 100 inches, so I'm gonna cut out 100 inches of twine.
What is that in feet, do you know? Okay.
No,
It's like a huge number.
it's 100 divided by 12. That's how many feet it is. And then on the end of my string, I am just tying 2 simple knots to create a loop. And then we get started with the stringing process, which is just about as easy as it looks. It might even be easier than it looks. I repeat this again and again until I have all of my beads on, and I'm just about done. And what's different from mine than the original version is that these beads are actually a little bit smaller. I think theirs might be like 50% bigger, but they had less beads. Theirs, I think, is a 10-foot strand when mine is closer to 8-ish. But when I'm all done, you can just go ahead, chop off the string, tie another knot, and then we're done and we have our wood garland. And I'm surprised by how much I like this. And if you guys are kind of like, what do we do with that thing? And I'm like, I know, it's kind of weird. What are we gonna do with it? Well, you can add it to a tray just as like an extra accessory along with some candles or other items that you might have. You can string it over just about anything and make it just look a little bit more styled. But I also think it's a really good like Scandinavian type vibe for Christmas. So you can add it with some garland or add it to your tree, make a couple more, make them longer. I like the vibe. I think it's cool, and I'm glad to have been inspired by it. So rounding it all up, mine cost $16.30 and the original was $99. That's a huge savings, and you didn't even have to like give any DIY effort. You know how sometimes your effort is worth money in that sense? Well, this was no effort, so it was so easy, so free, so free.
Okay, so next up, I'm gonna be trying to recreate this West Elm side table. It is a natural tree stump side table, and that's literally what it is. It's a stump of wood that they have finished nicely and are selling it as a side table. But this guy costs $300 American on the West Elm website. That seems a little expensive for a tree stump in my opinion, so I'm gonna try and do it and see if I can get somewhere close for way less than $300 today. So obviously what you're gonna need to make this is a stump of wood. Now prices for that can range. We were actually lucky enough to get ours for free because Austin does wood cutting on the side. So we had some pieces that I could use. But to make this fair, I did my research and people, especially in the Toronto area, were selling lots of stumps on places like Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace. And the cost for those can range anywhere between $20 and $40 for a stump of wood. So I'm gonna estimate that ours cost $20 today just so we can price this up and compare it to the original piece. So let's show you that stump. So I don't know what kind of wood the West Elm one is made of because I don't think it says, but ours is significantly heavier. So that's the one thing to note. But I guess once you put it in your house as a side table, you're probably not moving it that often. So as you can tell, this is just a natural piece of wood with the bark still on. So the very first step we need to do is remove all of the bark. I'm gonna do that with a chisel and a hammer and try and get as much of it off as I can. Okay, a little bit of honesty hour here today. I think we're gonna have to mark this one as a temporary fail. Temporary, because as I was taking the bark off, I realized that this guy is, I think, a little bit too damp for us to be able to sand it properly and move on with the next step. As you can see, the color of the wood was even changing as I was debarking it because obviously trees at one point were living things, and if you cut them and try and use them too quickly, there's still moisture in them and it's not gonna work. So I thought this was maybe good to go, but as we've learned, this will take a little bit of time to dry out before we can really finish the DIY properly. So we're gonna put it on a little bit of a hold. But I need you guys to do something for me, and that is subscribe to this channel because I don't want you to miss when we do finish this, because we are really excited about this project as it is, and we do 100% want to finish it. We're just gonna have to do it in like a month or so when this is dried out a little bit more. So go ahead, subscribe, and let's carry on with the rest of the video. All right, we're gonna try to recreate this velvet channeled pillow from CB2. Now, I actually saw this in the store, which is kind of what inspired this whole video today. And I loved it so much until I looked at the price tag, and this guy was almost $100 in the Canadian CB2. Now, I don't know what's going on here because when I checked the US CB2 website, it's listed for only $50, and the conversion rate doesn't make sense why it's so much more money here. I know our dollar is bad, but it's not that bad. But it's enough where I don't wanna buy it for that price here. And looking at it, I feel like it's something we can try and DIY together, and maybe you guys can learn how to make a pillow like this anyways. Okay, so the main part of this pillow that we're gonna start with is the front, because it's the part that's most interesting and the part we wanna figure out how to do first, and that is the channeled effect on the velvet front of the pillows. So to make this pillow, we're gonna need some thick velvet material, which Kelsey actually went out and found some for me.
Not easy. I guess I need like a 20-inch zipper, which is apparently, oh, there's some at the back there. They're just not in orange. Like brown. It's such a nice color, just not the right length. Okay. Brown it is.
Yeah, the recipe is I don't know, 50 cents.
50 cents?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is what we have. It's kind of like this burnt orange velvety material. And then to do the channeling, the way I think it's probably done is with some batting. And this is like sheet batting instead of the loose stuff that comes in the bag. And this was an offcut that she found, and it was actually only 50 cents for this sheet. So what a steal. So my first step is going to be cutting out a piece for the front out of the velvet material, and I'm going to be doing it a little bit bigger than the actual pillow I want because I don't know how much it's going to shrink when I go to do the channels. So the final size I want this pillow to be once it's finished is a 20 by 20 inch pillow because that's the size that my insert is. So my first square I'm going to cut out is actually going to be the back piece, and leaving some seam allowance, I'm cutting this to be 22 inches by 22 inches. Then moving on to the front piece, I'm again gonna make this 22 inches wide, but the length I'm gonna leave a little bit longer because when I sew the channels, I think that the puffiness is gonna actually take up a little bit of space. So for this one, I'm doing a 22 inch by 24 inch rectangle. So at this point, I wanna quickly jump ahead to the zipper. Now this zipper cost me $2.80, and I wanna actually install it to the one side of the front piece first so that I don't have to be sewing a zipper on through all the layers of the batting, because I feel like that's gonna just be more work than it needs to be. So I'm rolling in my hem and tucking it along the side of the zipper and then stitching it on. Okay, so now we have our slightly larger front piece with a zipper on one side, our cut to size with seam allowance back piece. We can move on to the fun part, that is doing the channeling. So for this part, we'll need to cut out a piece of the batting sheet that is the same size as our front piece currently is. And then we'll also need a back piece to the front layer to hold the batting in place. Now this can literally be any scrap fabric you want, an old t-shirt, an old pillowcase. In our case, we actually have scrap fabric left over from our dorm series. In our case, we actually have leftover fabric from our dorm series when we made the Friends couch inspired bed. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It was a very fun episode. And conveniently, this matches, but like low-key, it doesn't matter at all because it's gonna be on the inside of the pillow and you will never see it, which is why I'm gonna consider it free for us. And probably free for you too. So this guy is actually gonna go on the back of the front piece because we're making one solid front piece with the channeling that is separate than the actual back of the pillow. So again, we'll have to cut this to the size that is 22 by 24. That size is the same as the front piece we currently have and the batting we're cutting out as well. So once you have all three pieces to make the front piece, we're gonna eventually be sandwiching them together like this with our velvet on top, the batting in the middle, and our spare fabric on the bottom. But before we get to sewing them together, we're gonna start with just the top piece. If you're a super confident sewer, you could probably skip this step, but I think this is what's gonna make the sewing process so easy and keep our lines super straight. So we're gonna be sewing channels that are 1.5 inches apart from each other. So using a ruler and a pencil crayon in a similar color to the fabric, I'm drawing out lines, again, that are 1.5 inches from each other. I think when I went all the way across, I think I had 15 channels that I drew out, but you can basically go until you have no more fabric left. Once all the lines are drawn out, you can then reassemble your sandwich, and I'm just using a couple little pins sporadically placed just to hold things kind of roughly together. You certainly don't need to go and pin every single line. I feel like that's way too much work. Then we're taking it to the sewing machine and just doing straight stitch lines down each one of those channels. And the stitching is what's gonna pinch the fabric together and make the batting kind of bubble on each of the channels. And because I had those pencil lines there, it was so easy to just line the line up with the center of the sewing machine and just go straight down. This just helped to make sure my lines were really straight. So once it's finished, it's looking like this, and I'm low-key so excited about how good this looks. Like I said, doing those pencil lines before certainly helped this look so uniform and even, because if I was to freehand this, it would not look this good at all. This is how my back looks, by the way, which is pretty good as well. So we are getting really close to finishing this guy. So the next step is gonna be going back to that back piece we cut out at the very beginning. I'm gonna attach that to the other half of my zipper first.
Come for me, people, I do my pins backwards.
So now it's time to fold the two halves together with the nice sides on the inside. So at this point, now we need to make sure that our pillow is really, truly a 20 by 20 inch pillow. So when we go to sew it, we want it to be that exact dimension. Since we were a little bit like loose with the dimensions before, because I added a little bit extra just to make sure we had enough, here is the moment to make sure it's the right size. So I'm using a ruler to draw pencil lines just to really help me make sure it is that 20 by 20, or you could do it with pins, whatever works for you. And a tip, before you pin up all three sides, make sure you open up the zipper before you sew it so that we can flip it inside out once it's sewn. Once you have your perfect square all pinned in place, then just take your sewing machine and sew up the rest of the three sides. It's make sure you open up.
Not good. Oh my god. Oh my god. Narrator. And everything was not okay.
What is that? What is that?
It's the bottom thread getting all stuck up. It's
fine. Once it's sewn together, then because we left that zipper open, we can flip it inside out. And this is the completed pillowcase. I'm actually so hyped on how legit this looks. It's so soft, and it actually looks very similar to the one we're trying to replicate, which I didn't know if it would. I thought it would look similar, but this is like, aside from the color being a little off, pretty much identical. which is awesome. And then the very last step to this pillow is to put our pillow insert inside. This is a very simple one from IKEA that was actually $3.80 US. So I'm gonna place this in our pillow and then we can see how the two compare. Okay, so this original pillow from CB2 cost $50 US, and to make it on my own, it cost me only $14.10. Cha-ching! That's the money being left in my pocket because I didn't spend it.
So I'm going to be tackling this tray, which is from Anthropologie, and it is $138 USD, which, no. I mean, I feel like every time we introduce an object we're doing, we're just like, no, we don't want to do that. So we're not going to pay for that. Instead, I went to the thrift store and I went through all of their trays.
So it's between these two, and I think this pattern matches better, but this size is better, and I like the flower on it, so that's what we're going with.
It is real silver, I believe, and I actually didn't go with like the ornate design. Instead, this one is like a single flower, and I actually really like it. When the other one I was kind of like, meh, this might look more like the original, but I like this one better, so that counts for something as well. So this tray was $5.50, and I also went to the fabric store and picked up some fringe. This fringe, I feel like I got a little bit ripped off. They didn't have the price on it because a lot of stuff at this like local chill fabric store just like doesn't have prices, and then when you go to the front they're just like, this is how much, and you're like, sure, that's fine. Just like the batting in Becky's pillow, I was like, what is this? And she was like, 50 cents. So maybe she's making up for the fact that she gave me a really good deal on that. But this ended up being $6.45, which like for this much fringe is like actually a little bit expensive. Usually I think this is like a couple dollars a yard, and I got like a yard and a half. What? Anyways. So my first step is going to be giving this guy a good old clean. I actually am gonna try to not clean the whole thing because I kind of like the tarnish effect, and I think it brings out the warm color of the fringe I picked up. So for that reason, I'm going to try a recipe and only try to clean the design portions. Hopefully that looks good. I don't even know. So in the kitchen, I'm taking some baking soda as well as some water and just making a little paste. And then going in with a washcloth and just rubbing mostly just the design so that I can get it a little bit of shine in there. And also I realized afterwards that the whole thing is really just dirty. So I also gave it a rinse, and now it's looking a lot more clean. Since the Anthropologie version doesn't have handles, I'm going to take those off. So I'm just going in with a good old saw and sawing off the handles. It was really easy to do because silver is very soft, and I believe that this is real silver. That means that these are probably worth a pretty penny, or silver dollar? I don't know. How much do you think this is actually worth? Somebody who knows silver, how much would this be worth? I'm very curious. Is this like $1, or is this like 50 cents? Or even less, I don't know. Also, when I took off these handles, there was a very sharp edge showing, and because it was like on this little like circle hinge, well, I don't know what you would call that, but I was able to take some pliers and turn the sharp edge so that the round edge was showing.
Maybe I'll show this too, since this is so easy. So easy. So easy.
This is a little hack and something I did so that when you pick up the tray, you don't like cut yourself on raw silver. That'd be the most glamorous cut ever though. Pretty much the last step is adding our fringe. So I'm just going in with a hot glue gun and doing a very neat line and pressing down my fringe. And if you guys don't know, some fringes come with like some thread holding the fringe together. The first time I actually went to a certain fabric store, I was very confused. I was like, I want normal fringe. And she was like, no, you just like cut it and pull it, and then it releases the fringe, and it makes it so that when it's in transport, it doesn't get tangled or anything. So that's a hack if you guys didn't know that. I didn't know that for a very long time. So as I'm putting on my fringe and pressing it into the edge of my tray, I'm also going around and trimming off the very end and pulling the thread so that it releases the fringe. And I'm just doing that again all the way around, little glue strips, going ahead, pushing it on, and then cutting the fringe so that it can release the fringe. And at the very end, I just made sure that there was enough glue there to hold it together so that it didn't keep unraveling, because fringe will unravel if you let it, if you give it the chance. I'm very surprised with how this turned out. I thought it was gonna go a little bit tacky, but I actually love this vibe. It's like not fully my style, but I can picture that person that would love this. and I want to give it to them because it is really, 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 really cute. And you know what the cutest part is? The cost. So with my tray, fringe, and baking soda all added up, this tray only cost me $12.05. That's a huge savings because the original was $138. Table flip, tray flip. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video.
And make sure you give this channel a subscribe so you can see part 2 of that side table video when it's coming.
Yeah, we'll probably do either another That Cost How Much, or like sometimes we round up our fails. So if you want to see our other recreating fail DIY videos, you can click that here.
Thanks so much for watching this video today, guys.
If you like it, like it.
If you love it, sub it.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.